100%, right? You don't know right now if you're not the product of somebody dreaming or you're part of the matrix. That's hard to prove, right? That you're not part of that. You may say, well, I think, therefore I am, but somebody may be injecting that into your mind or that's part of your dream. But so we're not saying prove 100% in that sense, but that's not how you come to know truth for most things in life, right? That's not how we do that. But we can sincerely prove we can sincerely prove anything with 100% certainty, or we can scarcely prove anything with 100% certainty in that sense, right? But we believe something is true based on the amount of probability that it is true. That's how we know most things in life. That's how we know most things in life. How do you know Cleopatra existed? You would say, well, archaeology, I guess maybe they found some things with Cleopatra. Historians were looking back during that time, maybe found some writings having to do with her and Mark Antony. Maybe there was some other things that scientists have found in the mummies or doctors, something like it. What you're saying is, by a preponderance of evidence, I'm going to accept that it's true, right? How do you know your favorite team won or lost last night? Or got crushed by a 40 burger that got put on them? Well, the website you're looking at, fake websites, right? Somebody could put a fake NFL.com website up there or something like that. You don't know. But by the preponderance of evidence and what you know about it, that's how you come to that decision, right? Well, how do you know that a meter maid left a ticket on your car? Well, because there's a ticket on the car. Right? There's a ticket. Dear Henry, there's a ticket on the car there. But how do you know that didn't just appear out of thin air? You'd be like, come on. That's preposterous, right? Things don't just appear out of thin air. I'm not being silly. You don't have to think that way anymore. You just kind of know. Things just don't appear out of thin air. That doesn't work in court, does it? Right? Well, Judge, it just appeared out of thin air. I didn't think it was a real ticket. He's going to be like, okay, pay that fine, right? How do you know it's not actually a forgery, right? Well, it has the city seal, right? It has the seal of your city right there on the ticket. What if it had the Disney logo on it? It'd be like, this is not real, right? This is not a real ticket, right? What if it has the proper information on it, though? What if it has your license plate number, the color of your car, the description of your car on it? You'd be like, it's a real deal, because you look for those things, right? Do I have to pay this? Oh man, is this really for me? Did somebody put this on here by accident? Do whatever. But what if it was wadded up and thrown on the ground by your car and you picked it up, but it had a different license plate and a different description? You'd be like, that's not my car. I think you see where I'm going with that. If you say, well, it looks just like the other tickets I've got, so it's probably true, right? But if it was written in crayon, you would doubt, right? You see what I'm doing is it's the preponderance of evidence that's there. And what if you looked at the parking meter and it says, oh, it's expired? For sure, right? So with each detail, the probability that it's a legitimate ticket increases, right? Until it convinces you that it's true or it's genuine or you need to act on it. That's how we know things, right? We truly come to a conclusion when we have enough preponderance of evidence And then we accept it, or we have to take action, or we commit to it, or whatever it is. And here, when the consequences of believing or not believing are high, that's when you really start examining the evidence, right? Because you find that in your car, your heart starts beating fast, you pick it up, you want to make sure immediately, is this my car? Did they put it on somebody else's car, right? And so you immediately start reading through these things in your mind. You don't even think about it, but your mind goes through those steps. Is this my car? Is this it? Did I really violate? Oh, man. Right? So when we consider the consequences of believing or not, that's when we start adding up what's important. When things aren't that important, you don't worry about it. You don't put the preponderance of evidence to the test, so to speak, right? But if you say, well, I didn't see the meter maid put the ticket on my car, does that go over in a court of law? What about the person who says, but I don't see God, right? I didn't see God create the heavens and the earth. Would that work in the court of law in front of God? Or is he going to say, well, we gave you enough evidence, right? We put the ticket on your windshield, so to speak. And so this is the idea of what we're doing, is that you've got to get to the place where you're giving enough evidence where it's hard for them to deny, right? We're going to talk more about that. Because we all have skepticism. We have a skeptical dial, so to speak, right? And we can take this dial and we can turn it one way or another, right? And we can take it, and if you really want to believe something, you turn your skepticism dial way down, right? Oh, he likes me or she likes me. They said hi to me in the hallway, right? And you're like, and other people are like, well, yeah, they said hi to me too, but they, we're not going on a date or anything, So, oh no, but when they said hi to me, it kind of looked like they winked, kind of like, oh. So, what happened, right? Your skeptical meter's turned way down because it's something that you like or something that you want or whatever. But if it's not, you can turn it way, way up to where it doesn't matter what somebody tells you, right? Like eating asparagus is good for you or something like that. That's crazy talk, isn't it? Some of you are like, I really like asparagus. The idea is that this is a hard heart or a hard neck or closed ears or closed eyes, right? He who has an ear to hear. He who wants to turn down your skeptical meter, turn down that dial. Turn down your skepticism, right? We're supposed to turn it up towards the world, this type of thing, right? So we have that skepticism dial. When you want to believe something, you can do that. So this is also, you want to make the price of denying the conclusion as high as possible. You want the price of denying the conclusion as high as possible. Not artificially, but truthfully. So this is where when you're talking with people, yes, you bring the good news. What is the good news? That you don't have to go to hell. That you don't have to have damnation. That you don't have to face punishment. So you want to get their skeptical meter to be readjusted by them. If it's turned way up, you got to turn the consequences way up. Remember, Jesus did all these works. He did all these things, right? Raised people from the dead. The Sanhedrin were getting these reports. He healed 10 lepers right in a row, sent them in there. All the priests knew, because no leper had been healed by anyone in Israel directly, just in the Old Testament. And not directly went and dipped himself 7 times in the river, right? Somebody just speaks the word. They go in there, show the high priest. So they know by just a word. How did he do it? He just spoke a word. Then in Matthew 23, when he talks to them and they're hard-hearted, what does he say? He starts raising up the temperature. I'm not saying you do this to everyone, but he did this out of love because he said, you brood of vipers, you whitewashed sepulchres. That's not love. Yes, it was, because they had sealed their heart. They were going so hard against Jesus that they wanted to murder him. He had to turn the tables on them or flip the tables in their heart. They had to either justify their position or accuse themselves, right? That's what it talks about in Romans chapter 2. And when sin comes around and we see that we all fall short, we have the word of God in our hearts. We're going to get to this in the third argument, where we either accuse ourselves or excuse ourselves. We either accuse, soften our hearts, or we excuse ourselves, we harden our hearts and justify our sin. You got to make the consequence of that high to get him out of the skepticism, right? So we have to pay things like insurance and other things. God almighty, the price of insurance and everything that goes up. But I'll be ruined absolutely if I don't have any insurance. The consequences make me pay the price. So J.I. Packer says there's two kinds of people. So there's travelers and there's balconeers. The travelers are those who are on a journey. They may not be absolutely open, but they're seeking. They want to know something. They're open a little bit. That's why when you're younger and you haven't been bruised so much by life and you're not set in your ways, why so many young people come to the Lord is because they're more open. They're the travelers. But the balconeers are standing up on their balcony and they're looking down with their noses high in the air. And they see things and they do that, but they just criticize, but they never take the journey themselves. And what we're doing is we're beckoning these people, right? You're asking for the low-hanging fruit. Lord, send those travelers to me. And then we're giving evidence and putting a high cost for those who are the balconeers, who just want to stay up there. So you can prove God beyond a reasonable doubt with the preponderance of evidence that we give. And so I'm going to give you a few of those lessons, starting with this, and it's called the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument. I'm using the technical term because this is how you remember. Oh, wait a minute. You took an oath, remember, on the first night? I do solemnly swear to do all silly things that Pastor Scott asked me to do. Remember you took that oath? Yeah, you got to keep. Some of you new people, you're kind of like, you came in, so you're under the oath, right? You're under the oath. So it's the cosmological argument. Say it after me, the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument. The cosmological argument. Thank you. This is so good. It comes from two Greek words, cosmos, which meaning, the universe, the cosmos, everything that's in there. Always reminds me of Carl Sagan. Remember Carl Sagan? Billions and billions of stars out there in the cosmos. He used to say that. And so let's go through it. There are only three possible explanations for it's the cosmological argument. There are only three possible combinations or three possible explanations for the beginning of the universe. It created itself. It was always there, or it was created, right? So the cosmos, the universe, there's only three ways that it got here. It either created itself, it's always been there, in other words, it's eternal, or it was created, right? So some may come along when you start to present this, or you tell them, hey, have you ever heard of the cosmological argument? They'll be like, are you okay? But they may say, what do you mean by that, right? And so we're going to explicit. How did Ricky Ricardo say it? Explain it to me, Lucy, right? You got some splaining to do. So the cosmological argument, is this. Da-da-da, cosmological. Everything that comes to be has a cause. The universe came to be, therefore the universe has a cause, and that cause is God. Everything that comes to be, everything that's created, everything that comes from not existing to existing, right, has a cause. They don't just pop out of anywhere. The universe came to be, therefore the universe has a cause, and that cause is God. You guys got that? You're writing furiously here. Time running down. Do you got it? You got it? Oh, I'm about to flip the switch. Do you got it? Okay, there it goes. Too late. Have to steal it from your partner. It's okay to copy in this class. It's okay to copy. Like you're looking at somebody else's paper. It's okay. So the first premise, which is what? The first premise is a wall. Remember? Walls and roofs? So we're going to see if our walls are okay, right? Is it reasonable? Is it illogical? Is it absurd or self-refuting? No. So the first premise that we have here, everything that comes to be has a cause. So we say things do not come into existence by themselves. So you're backing up that premise, right? That statement. People go, oh, the universe just came to be. Things don't come, they don't just pop into existence. Come on, man, right? You just gotta, you turn your skeptical meter up so high that you're saying some absurd things, right? They may, and I've had this where people say, well, you don't need a cause. Oh my goodness. And they call Christians science denier. Do you understand that if you don't have a cause for something, you've thrown out all science? Science is cause and effect, right? You want something that you can test, repeatable on a theory and come to a conclusion. If it just happens randomly without a cause, none of your conclusions can be true because it's just random. There's no reason for it to happen. You can come up with 15 different answers on any scientific experiment because things just happen without a cause, right? So pull them in on that and say, man, that sounds like you're denying science right there, man. Thanks, right? So no one's worried about an elephant just suddenly appearing in their living room and defecating on their carpet. Because it doesn't randomly happen, right? We know that everything that comes to be has a cause. Everything that comes into existence has a cause, has a reason behind it. Nothing does not come from nothing. Then they might say, well, it created itself. That would be the second part. That's again absurd, right? Something created itself, right? Things don't create itself. If it doesn't exist, you can't create itself. You can't come from nothing. So what are we going to say about this? That everything that comes to be has a cause. That premise, that wall is sound. So let's look at the second one here. Because they'll say, well, the universe always existed, right? Well, the universe cannot be eternal because it would have run out of energy a long time ago. Eternal or infinite or whatever you want to call it. It would have run out of energy a long time ago. How do we know that? Second law of thermodynamics, the science of thermodynamics, and that's basically saying that you have a limited amount of energy, right, in a closed system, and when that energy is used up and moves to an unusable state, like you burn gas, but it turns into heat and explosion, but you can't recapture that heat and keep your car running, you run out of gas. And your car doesn't run forever. I wish one tank, right, put it in there. And that's why every time you go to the gas station, right, that, oh my gosh, you have a heart attack, how much water. But at least it's coming down a little bit. So second law of thermodynamics is the amount of energy available to do work is decreasing and becoming uniformly distributed. That's the technical term. The non-technical term is you can't power everything forever, right? Things run out of energy. So technically, the universe is just a big machine that's running on energy. After a while, everything will run out. Stars will go dark. Planets will slow down. Everything will go ice cold and black and dead. And that's it. And if it had been from eternity, it would already run out, right? It would already run out. Unrecoverable, right? Like a car. No, I said like a car. like a car. That's better. Like a car. That's a car. You put gas in that gas tank, it tells you you got this many miles to the law of second law of thermodynamics kicks in. You got no more gas, right? Because you experience it every week when you're out there, right? So the universe is moving. It's moving irreversibly toward a state of maximum disorder and minimum energy. You can see this every day. If you just even open up, not even spraying it, like if you open up a perfume bottle and just let it sit there, what happens? It starts evaporating, right? It starts going out. The energy's be used up. It goes out even in something like that. You're not even powering something with it. If you leave a tricycle out in the rain, right, it starts to rust out. You know this if you're sleuthing and you come along and you see a cup of coffee there in the lunchroom or on the table, and what do you do? Like what do? You put your hand around, like, how long's this been there, right? Why do you do that? Because you instinctively know if it's real hot, hey, somebody just put this down. You know, honey, right? Better be in the house. If it's ice cold, you'd be like, all right, I'm throwing it out, right? Dumping it out. They obviously left it. They didn't care. They had to run out of the house. But you easily deduce that. That's the second law of thermodynamics. Everybody understands that, right? A candle will burn just so long, and then you run out of energy. And so that heat and that wax is used up. Well, just think of the universe. This is the universe in a sundial here. And it's just running out of usable energy. Now, it may take billions of years, but not infinity, not eternity, right? It is running out of energy. And so it's always, it was always there is not true. That it's always there is not true. It's running out of energy there. So, the theist, or somebody who believes in God, we say God made the universe out of nothing because he's God. He could do that. What's the painful alternative? The high cost of not believing. The atheist says nothing made the universe out of nothing, right? What are they left with? Nothing made the universe. That's the high price they have to come to. This is where you get them. You got to tell them. So you believe nothing made nothing. But then you call us crazy for believing that God made it, right? We at least have someone all-powerful, all-knowing, and ever-present who then created and made it. Because that would make sense that somebody, everything that comes to be has a cause, and we say the only possible explanation for that would be an all-powerful being who created it, right? So what you're doing is you're turning that skeptical dial on them, right? You're making that threshold, that pain, the consequences of believing in that, right? So this is what you mean? You restate it. You mean nothing made the universe? It came out of nothing? Wow. But then they'll come back and they'll say, well, God must need a cause. Who made God, right? No, God did not come to be, therefore he does not need a cause. Remember, that's why you got to state it specifically. Everything that comes to be has a cause. Well, what caused God? Well, he didn't come to be, so he didn't have to have a cause. But everything that comes to be, if God is eternal, if he's around for eternity, if he's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, then he doesn't need a cause. Only things that come to be. And how do you know the universe came to be? Second law of thermodynamics. It can't be running for eternity. It would run out of energy billions and billions of years ago, a long time ago, right? So the scripture says, who created the cosmos? Isaiah 42:5, thus saith the Lord God, who created the heavens and stretched them out. By the way, you know when they look in these telescopes, they can see that the universe is still expanding. This literally says that like curtains, God is stretching them out. Who spread forth the earth and that which comes from it, who gives breath to the people on it and spirit to those who walk in it, right? So this is the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument. So we're going to say it together here. The cosmological argument. Why am I emphasizing that? Because cause, right? Cause connects it to cosmos, right? The cosmos was caused, right? Everything that comes to be has a cause, right? The universe came to be, therefore the universe has a cause right here. So we're going to say this together. I'm going to go the cosmological argument, then we'll go through the whole argument, okay? 1, 2, 3, the... I feel like one of those things where they have a bouncing ball and they're teaching. That's fun. Okay, you ready? Oh, where's my class? Are you ready? Stand up. Let's go. I'm going to teach you. Yes, it's going to be silly, but that's how you remember it, right? When you're silly, when you're doing this is how you're going to remember it. So I'm going to teach you the hand motions. Remember how to remember the first thing? Somebody grabbed you by the throat, and that's mean, right? That's mean. Then you reach over and you grab their pinky, and they go, ow, 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 and you go, how do you know that, right? Then I grab them by the throat, and then I pull the hand, you restate, right? Remember those? So now we're gonna do this. So everything that comes to be has a cause. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna point at things, everything, right? Point at everything, get into it. Some of you are like getting into it, man. Everything, right, that comes to be. Everything that comes to be. Now you're going to be a bee. These are the wings, and this is your bee face. Okay? So do it this. Everything that comes to be has a cause. So, you know, people who have a cause, everything that comes to be has a cause. So we're going to point at things, everything, right, that comes to be has a cause. You're going to do a ribbon, right? So everything, do it with me, everything that comes to be, right, has a cause, right? You'll remember it after this. Everything that comes to be has a cause. The second one, right, that we're going to do is the universe came to be, right? So we're going to do a hand motion. So we have the universe there, right? And we're going to do a hand motion now. So the universe is going to make a hand motion around that one. Do I have that animation in it? Yeah, I do. Okay. How funny is that? Can you do that with your arm? Okay. You can do something like that. So on the second part, that the universe, you want to go, the universe, right, came to be, right? So that's the second one. So the first one, right, everything that comes to be has a cause. The universe came to be. Very good. My face, they're like, oh my gosh, man, what do we do in there? You'll remember it. You'll remember it, right? Who teaches you? Who goes to this length to teach you like this? Moi. So, okay. So, therefore, like, all right. We're probably asking Kathy back there, what'd you feed him for dinner there? Let him go. So, here's the third one. Sorry. So, therefore, the universe has a cause, right? So you're going to do the universe symbol again, right? Can you do that? I don't know why that was so funny. I didn't plan it being funny. You guys are crazy. So the universe has, oops. Let me back up there. There we go. The universe has a cause, right? So let's do that third one. So the universe has a cause. And if you really want to memorize this, you can go, like you slap the pin in and you draw blood. What is that symbolizing? The consequences of denying it, right, are high. So let's go through these things again, right? Everything, right, that comes to be has a cause. The universe came to be. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Right? There's a consequence to denying that. You don't know God. Right? Give you guys a round of applause. You guys are good. All right. Good. It also keeps you up and keeps you moving there, so I don't have anybody fall asleep on me. If you fall asleep, then I point the red dot at you, just so you know. You might wake up and think a sniper's got you in there. We don't have snipers going. So, next one. It's the proof of the existence of God. It's the design argument. Sometimes it's called the teleological argument, but I don't want you to remember it by that. You'll remember it as the design argument, right? The first one is the cosmological argument, right? If you really want to make an impact, eat a bunch of onions or garlic before you talk to people. It's the cosmological argument. Like, what was that guy, Foster Brooks, right? He'd always do that. No, never mind. So, that's just where my mind goes. The design argument, I want you to call it the design argument. The design argument. Okay, you got it, right? Here it is. The design argument. All designs require a designer. The universe has a design. Therefore, the universe has a designer. Two walls holding up a roof. We're going to walk through. Are these legit? Are these good premises? Are these good solid walls, right? All designs require a designer. The universe has a design. Therefore, the universe has a designer. It's solid logically as you go through. And so what we're going to look at is the first premise here. All designs require a designer. And we know this instinctively, but when you crank up or somebody cranks up their skeptical dial, they deny that, right? But we know this instinctively. There's great design even in simplest forms. There is great design even in the simplest forms. The simplest forms need a designer. So a watch, and you may say, a watch is not the simplest of forms. Well, compared to the human body and compared to other things, it's extremely simple, right? But when you look at it, you're like, okay, that took all those gears and the weights and how that goes and the springs and the things that are on there, and it's got to be in the dial, and it's got to click at just the right speed to keep time, and then you got a calendar thing on there clicking and all that. That's a lot to that. This to work has a lot of stuff in it, man. And it works. So every watch, therefore, by conclusion, because it's so complicated, even though it's one of the simplest things, it needs a watchmaker. And I know critics have criticized this and atheists have criticized it. This is on the rebound, man. Right? Because they've criticized this when you had the neocon or neo-atheist and the new atheism come through and Hitchens and all these guys. What has happened is they made a bunch of illogical arguments and arguments that just fell flat, and after the people looked at their books for a while and were like, that doesn't hold water, man. This holds water. And so these things are still, when there's debates on college campuses and stuff like that, we're still using this. When you have the intelligent design people out there, this is the main argument that they're using. There's so many other good arguments too. I'm going to teach you these three tonight. And so when you're looking at this, again, you narrowing it down, there was only three possibilities with the universe, right? And there's only two possibilities with design. It's either intelligent or it's natural. Natural never accomplishes what you would say, intelligence has to do this. Natural can carve the Grand Canyon, or it's beautiful, but it's random. It's not by design. Well, there is a designer in the back of that made it beautiful, right? That these random processes, you can even go, oh man, that's so beautiful that's going on there. But here's the false conclusion that they make, the false premise: change equals design. No, it doesn't, right? Erosion is change. It does not equal design. An animal changes a little bit, does not equal, right? Natural design, natural change. That doesn't do that. They confuse that for design, but even the simplest design needs a designer. Here's what you do. You show them. That's just change. What you want, if you look at the simplest design, right? Wow, that is really hard to read. Oh, who's got the eyesight out there? Holy smoke. You're going hunting with me the next time. So that is really hard to see. I thought that would be, you have 1 + 1 = 2. That's of the simplest of design, right? Does that ever happen through random processes, natural processes? No. Because you never get information from natural processes. You never get information. You get change. You never get information. For one creature to change to another, you have to inculcate, you have to put in information. That doesn't happen in natural processes. It just doesn't happen, right? And so you got the beauty of design. So you have the chalkboard there. If you come home and you can't find your family, and then you walk over to the table and you see these pretzel sticks out here, and you're like, I wonder if something happened to them. Would you look at this and go, oh wow, the wifey left out a snack for me? If she ever got away from the kidnapper, you would need help, right? It's simple design. Has that ever happened? So people say, well, if you take the bag of pretzels and you shake it up and you put it on the table and you do that 1,000,000 times or an infinite time, eventually it would spell this. No, it wouldn't. It would be crumbs, right? Because they take out of the equation entropy. For every action, there's always a reaction, and there's always a distraction or something getting in the way. Entropy is the part of the law of thermodynamics that everything is degrading, right? So rust is entropy. You only have so much time to put these things together. So they're saying these proteins are coming together in this primordial ooze. And so we're working at it. It took 17 hours, but these two proteins came together. Oh, but they don't tell you that proteins only last about 90 seconds on their own. They had to do this experiment over and over and over and put preservatives in there so that these proteins would actually last that long and come together. Because entropy gets in there. It destroys everything. If I take all those parts, let's say that watch, right? Let's say you have all the parts of the watch and you put it in a bag and you shake the bag. How long would it take to assemble those parts? It wouldn't, because you know the answer. Eventually it's going to start chipping and breaking and snapping, and the bag's going to tear. It's never going to come together. Why? You need a designer to put it together. It has to be a designer that puts these things together, right? It's intelligence that put this up here, right? Your gold. And so this is also what Michael Behe says is the irreducible complexity. Irreducible complexity means that when you take even the simplest form and reduce it to the lowest level of complexity where it still operates, there's no way you can get there by random chance. Why? Because they say, positive and beneficial mutations from the survival of the fittest gets pushed along through hereditary to the next generation of animals or whatever it is, right? But that mutation has to be beneficial. So Michael Behe uses this example, some of you might know, but here's a mousetrap, right? Consists of the actual plate here or the platform, right? You have a bait, hook type of thing. You have the spring, and then you have the actual trap mechanism. 4 pieces. If I remove any of these pieces, does that trap work? No. Have to have the spring. It won't snap shut. Have to have the hook. You have to have the platform or the base. So this is reduced to its simplest form, and if you remove any of them, it doesn't work. Now compare that to the human body. The life is in the blood. Life is in the blood, Scripture says, right? That is such a complex system. It has to work beautifully, perfectly from the start, or you're dead. Your blood has all these sensors in it. All these fibrin, all these fingers that are in there, and it's sensing all these different things from blood pressure, right? Too low, pass out, you die. Too high, burst, and you die. Well, you've got sensors in there. But what do? Well, it's got to release either sodium or potassium or send messages to the nerves, right? Potassium allows you to relax. Sodium contracts, right? So you start having a leg cramp. They're, oh, you're low on potassium, right? But then does it just dump a bunch in? Where does it even know to get it? And if it dumps too much in, blood pressure goes up. too high, too much sodium, too much potassium, too low. It's got to have this balance there. It's also got to know how much oxygen is going through it. It's also got to know if there's a tear in there to send. It's got to send in the white blood cells if there's a infection. It's got to send in clotting cells if there's a tear or a break. It's got to. But if this isn't working 100% from the beginning, you're dead. Every one of these systems, the right amount of oxygen, right? But not too much of the other stuff. It's got to also take the oxygen with the fuel. So it's the delivery truck that also takes in the food and the fuel to the cells, and it's also got to take the garbage out in the same truck. Intelligent design, right? And if that's not working 100% from the beginning, we're talking, there's so much more to it, right? Because it's got to connect and work with the kidneys. It's got to connect and work with the stomach. It's got to connect and work with the lungs. And at the heart of it is the heart. And it also has to be working with the brain so it never shuts off and all this is done whether you're awake or asleep. How many chances do you get for that to work right? One. Oh, half by chance. Give me a break. Give me a break. Darwin admitted if you could demonstrate that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. Well, we just gave you the blood system, right? That won't. Here's Michael Behe, Darwin's Black Box. He's got other books out there. I highly recommend them. He says, no one at Harvard University, no one at the National Institutes of Health, no member of the National Academy of Sciences, no Nobel Prize winner, no one at all can give a detailed account of how the cilium or vision or blood clotting or any complex biochemical process might have developed in a Darwinian fashion. All these things got here somehow, if not in a Darwinian fashion. Then how do you know that, right? How do you know that? And that, my friend, then brings us to the moral argument, right? What's the problem? The problem is they can't really explain this. That's why they're having an existential crisis in university campuses with evolutionists. They're moving now away from Darwinian evolution to punctuated equilibrium, to away from that to actually star seeding or asteroid seeding, that it came from another planet, which is just kicking the can down the street, which is a saying of, okay, you can say that the complex stuff came here and it didn't evolve so much as it was already very complex, came from these germs and these cells that came on these asteroids, which no one's ever found. But how did it evolve over there then? Right? They just kicked the can down the street. Problem solved, right? It doesn't work. So even simplistic design needs a designer. The second premise, there is design in the universe. If a watch needs it, then and you came across it, say in the woods, there's a watch out in the wood or the muck that's over here. That's hard to see. If you see a watch and you're just walking out in the woods and you see that, what do you normally assume? Oh, who lost this? You don't think, oh, wow, look what nature made, right? Keeps perfect time. You just don't see that. But if a watch, normal watch, needs a watchmaker, needs a designer, what if it's as big as a house, big as a building? Would that still need a designer? Would that still need a designer? Yeah. What if it's as big as the earth? Would it still need a designer? Yeah. Yeah. So that doesn't matter. So, let me ask you, two types of causes, intelligent or natural. Is intelligence put this together, or is this a natural occurrence? Intelligence, right? What if it's really simple? What if it's like a 2D sign that's got 3 colors? I mean, that's pretty simplistic. Kind of looks like a kid drew that. Is that natural, or is that intelligence that did that? Intelligence did that. What if it's 2D and it's only one color and it's only out of one type of material? Intelligent or natural? I mean, it's super simple. Intelligence, huh? So, 2 types of causes. You have these signs. Notice that's a D in a sign. So, I'm leading you right into it. 2 types of causes, natural or intelligent. If you just come and the bag is there and it's closed and you see pretzels in the shape of a D, maybe, but your first instinct is somebody gathered it and put it together, right? Somebody gathered it and put it together. So, the design argument. All designs require a designer. The universe has design, therefore, the universe has a designer. So, we're going to do the first part of that. All rise. We're going to learn the next one. Some of you are falling asleep. We're going to learn the next one. Okay, so we're gonna make a. Do I have it on here? I don't think I have it on here. We're gonna make a uppercase D with our hands, right? An uppercase D with our hands. All D signs, right? All D signs need a designer. You're the one who made it. All D signs need a designer, right? Really easy. So, I mean, did I have that up there? Let me see, what did I have up here? Been a while. Okay, all D signs need a designer, right? All D signs need a designer. The next one, the universe has a D sign. So what do we do for the universe? You got, yeah. Throw your hand around. The universe has a D sign. Okay, this one's very easy. Universe has a D sign. So, therefore, the universe has a D signer, right? Therefore, the universe has a D signer, and you point up. The universe has a D signer. Instead of the first one, you're the designer, right? So how does that go? Can somebody do it from the beginning? Nate's got it. Hold on. Got it?
Designs need a designer. The universe has a design. Therefore, the universe has a designer.
Great. You get a book. You the man. Okay, we're going to run through that again, though, right? All designs need a designer, right? The universe has a design, right? How quickly did you just learn that tonight? Everybody gets a book. There's a book underneath your chair. There's a book for you and a book for you. And a book for you. Not true. Not true. We'll review these right at the end real quick. Now let's go to the last argument here. Right? We're right on time. Perfect. The moral argument. The moral argument. All men know morals. Morals require a lawgiver. Therefore, there is a supreme moral lawgiver. The moral argument. Say it with me. The moral argument. The moral argument. Okay. Okay. Come on. Well, I lost you. Where you go? Come on. Okay, you guys are taking notes. Class. Let's start over. You're having too much fun up there, Pastor Scott. Read all three with me. We'll start with the moral argument. All men know morals. Morals require a lawgiver. Therefore, there is a supreme moral lawgiver. Amen and amen. We're going to look at that. The moral argument is about ethics. I know something about each one of you. I know something about each one of you. God told me. Every one of you struggles in some area of a poor self-image. Because we're all sinners. So there's areas in your life you don't like about yourself. Because you're not measuring up to a standard. Because that's written on every person's heart. The first two arguments are very scientific, right? Super scientific, but they got science in them. This one really hits home. It really does well, like on college campuses, when we go there, or high schools, when I present it to other people, or just talking, right? It really hits home because there's emotion involved with this. When you have injustice, and you have tragedies, and you have things that people are affected by in their everyday life, this really hits home. So you learn this because if man is just natural and we're some kind of accidental, random chance happening out of primordial ooze, how do you explain guilt? How do you explain goodness, fairness, virtues? Right? How do you explain those? Well, the Bible explains it. Romans chapter 2, we talked about this. For when the Gentiles, who don't even have the law of God, they're not even reading the Pentateuch of the Torah. Right? They don't have the law of God. These not having the law are a law unto themselves. How could that be? They show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another in the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ according to my gospel. Why? Because the law of God is written in every person's heart, right? Because we're made in the image of God, we have this innate sense of right and wrong, but we either accuse ourselves when we do something wrong. We have a bad self-image. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I feel bad about myself. I feel bad at doing that. I need to apologize. I need to do that. That's where everybody has that at one time or another. Even the worst individuals have these thoughts. Or they excuse themselves. Oh, they had it coming. That was justified. Laid into them. They needed that, And I need to stand up for myself and just myself. Number one, man. Thinking number one only, right? So you begin to harden your heart. You excuse yourself, right? That's called hardening, stiffening the neck, shutting the ears and the eyes, right? Or we become soft and we become open. We accuse ourselves and we go, that was sin or that was wrong, right? So whether somebody even has the law of God, they know it's written in their heart. They know it's written in their heart. But today there's a denial of this. They can deny it all they want. It's still written in their heart. That's the thing. That's part of denying this when they're saying, there's no truth. There's no absolute truth. Get that a lot on the campus when we're going out there. There's some real good pastors that are going out there, especially Matthew, who you guys got to see. He's in Uganda right now. And so he'll be back. And we'll be out the 11th, I think, on him and another pastor out on UNM campus, and these are some of the questions that come up because I got into this discussion almost every time I'm out there. So these are powerful arguments. So, an absolute truth, an absolute moral, an absolute is something that is true for all people, all places, and all times. It's true for all peoples and all places and all times. There's an absolute moral lawgiver. Murder. Is it wrong at 4 a.m.? Is it wrong at 2 p.m.? Is it wrong in Canada? Is it wrong in Pennsylvania? I kind of feel like Dr. Seuss, right? On a train? In a car? I won't take it that far. So it's for all places, all times, right? And all people. All people. So again, there's no ignorance plea. Just like when we're talking about, even with tickets, and you go, I didn't know that was a no parking zone. They'll be like, well, it's no parking zone. You can't plea ignorance, right? No ignorance plea. If there are no moral truths and we're just from the primordial ooze, then there's no right and wrong. That's when people say, well, everything's relative. What they mean by that is it's just a social construct. We came about these rules and laws just because over evolution and over time, we kind of thought, hey, herd mentality, this is good, we should all do that. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. That's because we look at other places that do it or somebody does it to us and we go, no, that's wrong, right? We look at Nazi Germany and we go, that's wrong. Well, if that's their construct and if that's what they want to do, why can we look at it and say it's wrong, right? How can we say, that's just a social construct. If they want to murder 6 million people or 12 million people or 50 million people, who am I to say it's wrong? Because there's no right and wrong. If we all evolve, there is no right and wrong. There's no lawgiver. So people will argue with you, and especially they'll come and they'll say, well, God did all these things in the Bible. You got to borrow from the Bible. You got to borrow God to complain about God. You got to borrow a Christian worldview of right and wrong, good and evil to say, I think God is evil or I think God is wrong. You're like, how do you know that, right? How do you know that? That's where you come back. How do you know that's right and wrong? They don't have an answer for that. We have an answer for that. So there's no ignorance plea, but they're saying, hey, if it's just genetics, then you do what society or what genetics do. If there's no right and wrong and no God, it's by your environment, what you take in, what you eat, what you see, what you do. And so that's what makes things right and wrong. That's how you react to. So they tried this in Missouri many moons ago. There was a murder committed, and the guy said, well, there's no right and wrong. I'm a product of the environment. So we're determined, by our environment, what you see, how you live, and what you eat. And so he said, the lawyer didn't want to bring it up, but the client pressed it. He goes, tell him I had a sugar high because I ate a box of Twinkies and I murdered the guy. So I'm not responsible. The Twinkies did it. Do you think the judge accepted that or threw it out? Why? If there's no ultimate right and wrong? If we're a product of our environment? If you're there and you commit the murder and you say, well, nobody ever told me murder was wrong. How can you hold me accountable? Well, society says that. Well, I don't have a law degree. Nobody came and knocked on my door and said, here's all the statutes of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County and the state of New Mexico. Read them all and follow them. They don't allow you to plead ignorance. Because in the real world, we all know God's law is written on our heart. Right? We all know this. We deny it to try to get away from God. Right? We try to get away from that. We expect common courtesy. Here's where you get people. We just expect it. It's not what people say, it's what they do. I'm going to say that a couple times because that's really where you get them, right? We don't believe people are predestined to certain actions just because their environment. You should overcome your environment and do what's right. Right? So, therefore, we believe everyone should know common courtesy. Right? We expect common courtesy. A person's reaction is truly what they believe. Go back. Did I miss one in there? We expect common courtesy. I've got one slide missing. That's all right. Let me give you some examples. You're sitting, it's the Christmas season. 'Tis the season to not be jolly, right? You're trying to get a place in a parking space in Hobby Lobby, or you're trying to get to somewhere, right? And you're sitting there and you're, oh, this person's backing out. You pull up there, you put on your blinker, right? You know what I'm going to say, right? That person pulls out and then somebody pulls right in. You're like, oh, I had my blinker on, right? What makes that right? You're like, common courtesy. Even if it isn't a law, there is a law of love. There's a law of courtesy. There's a law of fairness. I was here first with my blinker. If somebody falls at the grocery store and all their stuff dumps out, maybe it's somebody who's injured, right, or has a handicap. If you don't help them, what do you feel about yourself? Or if somebody doesn't help them or walks by, right, all their stuff's dumped out on it, you're like, oh, you should expect to help that person, right? If you do something nice for somebody, go and you open the door, right, to let them in. I'm going to open the door for you. You can go right in and stuff. I come up here. You're going to get to the hostess first and get seated before I'll get seated. But go ahead. I'm going to let you right in. It's a little cold outside. And they just walk in. They're talking. You're like, hey, you should at least said thank you. Right? You ever felt that way? Like, I should have said thank you. Common courtesy, right? Right and wrong. It's right. It's innate in every one of us. The reason I can bring these things up because you all think the same way. If you loan something to somebody and they bring it back all jacked up and destroyed, you're like, come on, man. Common courtesy is that you should bring it back in the same way, or if you damage it, you fix it, right? But a person's reaction will tell you what they truly believe. A person's reaction, right? Everybody's offended when treated badly. Everybody's offended when treated badly. Why? I thought that was just a social construct. There's no right and wrong. Why are you offended if I yell at you? Because you shouldn't do that. Who said? Everybody knows this. What's important is not just what they say, but how they react. Even people who steal. Right? Even people who steal. When something's taken from them, what do they say? What do they think? Right? People who even say defund the police, but when they get robbed, who do they call? Ghostbusters. Okay, had to get that one in. It's really hard to work in a Ghostbuster joke these days, so got one in. So morality goes beyond country, it goes beyond culture. It goes beyond country and beyond culture. When they finally captured SS officers and these guys who ran gulags and the extermination camps, and even those underneath them, and they brought them to trial, they said we were just following orders. What was the court's decision on this? Because they said, well, we could be put to death. We were just following orders. The court literally said there's a law above the law. There's a natural lawgiver. That's how they convicted these guys. That's what our country was founded on. The natural lawgiver. When it says nature's law or nature's God, they're talking about, they're not just, it's not a backhanded slap at God. This is the theology of the time. This is where this came from, right? Moral laws require a moral lawgiver. You cannot deny it without affirming it, right? You must borrow from God and do that. Racism is wrong. How do you know that? Right? That's interesting. How did you come to that conclusion? It's just wrong. If they say, well, it's a social construct, well, what about other societies that it's not part of their social construct? Is it right or wrong? Why are you so adamant then? If it's all generic, if it's all relative, if it's not really right or wrong, then rape or murdering a child is no different than burping or spitting on the sidewalk, because it's all social construct. It's either socially acceptable or it's not. What are you doing? You're raising the consequence, right? You're raising. For them denying it, they have to say things like, torturing babies for fun, it's not wrong. Ask them, is torturing babies for fun right or wrong? Wrong. In every culture, in every sense, it's an absolute wrong, right? It's an absolute wrong. And so we bring him to that. So you can't deny it without affirming it, because you have to borrow from God. C.S. Lewis says, I must presuppose there is an absolute standard in order to proclaim it unjust. Right? So the moral arguments presume the existence of an ultimate standard we can appeal to. I'm right, you're wrong. How do you know that? Where do you get that? Right? It's just innate within us. It's just in us. And that's why this is so powerful, because it's very emotional. It's very emotional. So a professor who happened to be a Christian but in a secular university, one of his students wrote a whole paper, really excellent paper, that there is no right and wrong, right? There's no absolute morality. So it was a beauty of a paper with footnotes and everything else, right? Put it in a beautiful blue binder, turned it in. A couple days later when he got it back, big old F written on the front of it. He's like, what? I gotta go talk to that professor. He went in, he barges in the professor's office. How in the world could I get an F on this paper? Look at all the work. Look at all the citing I did. Look at all the quotations I had in here. I did it perfectly. I outlined it perfectly. He goes, I don't like blue folders. F. He goes, that's not right. Look at all the work I did. I did all this work, all the citations and everything. And he says, blue folder, F. He goes, that's not right. He goes, what was your topic again? There's no absolute right or wrong. All right? People will deny it, but when it's how they react is what they really believe, right? How you act is what you really believe. So in the real world, everybody believes in the right and wrong. They just try to deny it when it's beneficial for themselves, right? They try to deny it when it's beneficial for themselves. Then they'll come at you, well, the Bible talks about slavery or whatever, and there's answers for that. A quick answer is, yeah, Old Testament, the slavery is indentured servitude. It's not the chattel type of New World slavery type of thing. Matter of fact, God condemns that several places. Says that they're not allowed to sell. And even in the book of Revelation, when he destroys Babylon, the economic power, he says he's destroying them. And one of the things that he destroys them for is that they're bartering or they're buying and selling people's souls. In other words, modern day slavery again. And so God condemns it and destroys it. So there's answers for all that as we go through. So the moral argument, here we go. All men know morals. Morals require a lawgiver. Therefore, there is a supreme moral lawgiver. And everybody stand, here we go. All men know morals. All men know morals. So here's what we're going to do. You guys are already laughing. All men know morals, right? Again, you're going to, instead of pointing to everything, you're going to point at people, right? Point at people. All men know, put an M, morals. All men know morals, right? All men know morals, right? Then we're going to do that same thing. Morals require a lawgiver. So you're taking the gavel, right? You're bringing the gavel down, right? All men know morals. Morals require a lawgiver. Therefore, I'm not keeping up with it, huh? You guys are like, so morals require a lawgiver, because this is an easy one to remember, right? Morals, right, require a lawgiver. And then, so the visual is really helpful. Therefore, there is a supreme moral lawgiver. Yep, you're going to have to do it, right? So, okay, what do we start off with? The moral argument, right? Everybody, right, knows morals, right? There is a moral, therefore there's a moral lawgiver, right? And now you're going to put your hand on your hip like right? Da-da, 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 like you're like a Superman, right? You're a superhero. You're a Marvel character, right? Therefore, there's a supreme moral lawgiver, right? Therefore, there's a supreme moral lawgiver, right? So I got ahead. I'm on the other notes here. So I was like, what? Wait, that's for the wrong one. You got it? Let's walk through it again. Let me go through it. So, yeah, I'm way ahead here. So we're going to the moral argument. I'll say the words. You do the hand signs. All men, right? No morals, right? Morals require a lawgiver, right? Therefore, you got to change your therefore. Say it, therefore. Oh, very good. There's a supreme moral lawgiver. And that's the moral argument. Okay, that's the moral argument. But we're going to walk you through the other ones. You remember the other ones real quick? Let's go backwards here. Let's do the design argument, the D-sign argument, right? So, all D-signs, what? Has a designer, right? All D-signs have a designer. The universe has a designer. You won't forget that one, because that whole thing and the thing, right? So, what's the last part here? My thing's going crazy. Good. Hey, we're having fun and you're memorizing this. This is silly, but you're going to lead somebody to the Lord with one of these. You're going to. I can just see it. Why? How do I know that? When I taught this to my systematic theology class the very first time, then I sent them out with I gave them an assignment, and they had to go out to talk to people in the mall, and they had to ask, how do you think the world came to be? Right? And people are like, hey, this, and then people are like, I don't want to talk. And they're like, hey, please, this is my homework for college. I got to do this. And they're like, okay, And how do you think the world came to be? I don't know, whatever. And he goes, well, did it happen by chance? Right? Did a world always exist? And then they got to use the more argument. In that class, we had about 50 students, but 33 people came to the Lord that one semester using these techniques, right? You got to start the conversation. I give you conversation starters, matter of fact, right? You get conversation starters. So which one are we on? On the first one, right? Oh, the funny one, the fun one. The cosmological argument, right? So we got everything that comes to be, right? Everything you're pointing out at people, everything that comes to be, right, has a cause, right? And so the universe, right, came to be, right? Therefore, the universe has a cause. Make the pain threshold high, right? Give yourself, and I didn't put it in my notes here, but I did put it on your notes in there. I give you 5 statements, 5 questions, 5 ways. I think it's the second or third page in, right? You can start a conversation on each one of these arguments, right? To help you. It's not the last page. I stuck it somewhere in there, second or third page, right? It is the last page? Oh, it is the last page because they stapled it on the last. Yeah, because I changed it afterwards. Yeah, so the next class gets it in order, right? So, but you got it on the last page. So those are 5 ways to bring up the conversation to lead people into this. So next time somebody's visiting, you got a nephew or somebody coming in or a friend, use one of these statements and then be ready with the argument. You don't have to get it perfect. Even if you get it halfway and you're like, how do you think we all got here? How do you think the universe came to be? How do you think, this is, well, why do you think things are right and wrong, right? Even if you do that, it seems like everybody has the same thing. If there is no God, then there is no right and wrong. But we all know there's a right and wrong, so there has to be a God. So even if the simple thing like that, you don't get it perfectly in order, these are powerful ways to witness every day. Make sense? Give yourself a round of applause here. You did excellent. The next 2 weeks, we're going to cover how to defend the Bible and then how to defend Christ, how to defend Jesus, right? Those are 2 things. You want to crack the egg, right? And you want to get the hardness, start opening the doors, and then you want to bring the truth. And the truth is they're going to either say, I don't trust the Bible, so that means they can reject Jesus. We're going to teach you how to defend the Bible, and then they'll say, well, what about Jesus, right? He wasn't God, he was a good teacher, or whatever. So we're going to cover those things in the next coming weeks. Let's close in prayer. Father, thank you for just the excitement, the joy in these people's hearts. How much fun, Lord, to be united by the blood of your Son and the uniqueness of your salvation and the truthfulness of it, Father. May you use us as instruments of righteousness. Bring those people right to our doors, right to our workplace, Lord, right to our ministry, right to our lives, Lord, that we might be able to use these things to share with them, Father. Pray in Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. See you next week.
We're singing the birds and the bees. Oh, when I hear that bird birds, they don't sing, they praise. When I see the rivers, they don't run, they race. Was all creation eager just to see your face, Jesus, Jesus. You gave me ears to hear your song. You gave me voice to sing along. I thought you were far, but I was wrong. You were right here. Now when I see the birds, they don't sing, they praise. When I see the rivers, they don't run, they race. 'Cause all creation's eager just to see your face, Jesus. Start like a whisper in the dead of night, then it grew louder like a rising tide. I thought I was living, then it came alive when I found you right here. Oh, when I hear the birds, they don't sing, they praise. When I see the rivers, they don't run, they race. 'Cause all creation's eager just to see your face, Jesus. Oh, when I hear the wind, they don't howl, they run. When I set, they don't set it high, just like Moses did when you passing by, Jesus. You always wanted me, you always wanted me, so you set eternity inside of me. You always wanted me, you always wanted me, so you've set eternity inside of me. You always wanted me, you always wanted me, so you set eternity inside of me, inside of me. So you set eternity inside of me. Oh, when I hear the birds, they don't sing, they praise. When I see the rivers, they don't run, they race. 'Cause all creation's eager just to see your face, Jesus. Oh, when I hear the wind, they don't howl, they cry. When the sun goes down, it don't set it high, just like Moses did when you pass him by, Jesus, Jesus. Yeah, see you next week.